Okay, we thank everyone for their patience. Thank all of our hard-working technicians over here. You should not think that you can deduct this from their pay because they volunteer. So we have an all-volunteer army. Next week, Be'ez Hashem Yisbarach, if all works well, and as you see, we have everything down to a science here. We will be screening the shir from Melbourne, Australia. That's if everything works well. Be'ez Hashem Yisbarach. So in other words, if the Yom will be here Wednesday night, again, only the Rabbi Hashem knows where you wind up, but according to the plan, so I will be in Australia, and at the synchronized time, which is going to be 12 o'clock Thursday, you hopefully will be able to see the shir here on a screen, which should coincide to 10 o'clock Wednesday night. Okay, but again, we'll see what the Mensch tracht and Gott lacht, we'll see what the Rabbi Hashem has in store. Talking about where a person is and where he winds up in the course of his life. So, Eila Masei B'nei Yisrael Asher Yatzu Mi'eretz Mitzrayim L'tzivaisam B'yad Moshe V'Aaron, and as we near the end of Bamidbar, we run through all the different stations where Klal Yisrael was. And it's interesting. If you look at the lashon of the pasuk, it says V'yichtav Moshe. Moshe wrote as Moitza Ehem L'Masayim. Moshe wrote their goings forth according to their journey, Hashem, and then it turns around and it says Ve'ela Masayim L'Moitza Eyem in the reverse order. Mashal from the Dubna Magid, that there's a man who remarries, and which means his son now has a stepmother. And as all good stepmothers are concerned, or all good stepmother stories, I should say, in real life, I won't hope that it's better, and in many instances I know personally where it is better. Not just better, but lechatchila. But in this instance, this stepmother was a stepmother according to the halachas of stepmother, and she gave it to their son, as Levi Sedaf. And the father had to go out and find a shidduch for the son. He found a very good shidduch. So they were going to meet the girl, and they're on the wagon, and they're driving, they're traveling. And the father keeps asking the driver, how long more till we get there? How long more till we get there? And the boy keeps asking the driver, how far already are we from home? How far are we from home? So the driver says, why are you both asking the question in a different way? So they realize that the father, he knows this is a great shidduch, and he wants his son to be there. So he kept saying, how long till my son gets to see what a good shidduch this is? This son, he doesn't know shidduch from nothing. He wants to know how far he is from his stepmother. That's what he wants to know. So Klal Yisrael, you know, they want to know, right? They're itching to get out of the midbar. Moshe Rabbeinu says, you don't know what Eretz Yisrael is like, what it's going to be. Rabbi say, a lot of things happen today that we're going to reroute the shir, which should be appropriate. The world changed today in many different ways. From last Wednesday to this Wednesday, the world is a different world. You know, the saga of Klal Yisrael and Galus moves on to a new station. First of all, whenever there's a terrorist attack against Yidden, you have to realize that they were not particular which Yidden. They were the shluchei tzibur for us, for every one of us. And that's something that has to penetrate very deep into our understanding of Galus. But I would like to devote the time, and who knows if it's not Tali Zeh B'Zeh, because there's a certain shmir when tzaddikim are here, about the p'tira of Harav Hagayin, Rabbi Yashav Zecher Tzadik Levracha. I think that on this day, the saga of Klal Yisrael in Galus, it moves to a new station, en route, from how many stops we have to make from Har Sinai to the Geula Shalema. Rabbi Yosef Shalom ben Avram Elyashiv was born on Rosh Chodesh Nisan, Taf Reish Ayin, in the year 1910, in a small Lithuanian town called Shavel. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right. 60% of the town was Jewish. 1910, my dear friends. That means it was a couple of years before World War I. So that means that in the Elyashiv family, as they were screaming, Mazel Tov, it's a boy! Right there and then, you had Kaiser Wilhelm in Germany, Franz Joseph, the emperor of the Austrian-Hungarian Empire, the king of England, the Tsar of Russia, the Sultan. They're all sharpening their swords, and they're all saying, I'm going to do whatever it takes to keep my monarchy going. And they were willing to dump millions of lives en route. They didn't know that this baby was born. as they were doing this. They probably wouldn't care, because they were busy setting up alliances, drawing up treaties, mobilizing forces, and like I said, preparing to thrash millions of lives to preserve their monarchies, because, the Tsar of Russia is going to be there forever. And then the Sultan is going to be there forever. What's the Shaila? Right? They have no time to hear about some baby that was born someplace in a little village. They would have been very surprised to know that this baby is going to outlive not only these kings, but is going to outlive these monarchies that will be no longer existent. I want to explain to you a little bit to get a feeling of what went on over here. The nature of what happened by World War I. That was the last of the kings. And we see the Zohar talks about this, that there's going to come a Tkufa where it's the end of the period of kings. But that was like World War I was the last people had it with kings, but it took millions of lives. But right there and then, so all the kings had alliances, and they all had you start up with me, I start up with you, he attacks me, then you join me. And if he attacks me, you join me, which meant disaster, that if one nation attacks the other, everyone is drawn into the war. So the Germans attacked first, because Kaiser Wilhelm was sure he was going to win. He had a huge, massive cannon, which was the biggest cannon to date. It was called Big Bertha, which the designer of the cannon, named it after his wife. Not sure what Shalom Bayis was in that house. I just want to point out a very interesting, or maybe a frightening thought. One of the writers of the period said, everyone was getting nervous, there's going to be war. He says, with such a huge cannon, there can't be war. No one in his right mind is going to use it. Okay? I'll draw your own conclusions. Now, so as Big Bertha is being pushed, they say that the whole World War I, if they pushed this Big Bertha through on time, the Germans would have won before anyone else could have gotten their act together. But Big Bertha was so big that it kept derailing the train, so they had to build special tracks. And by the time they got things going, everybody else was already mobilized for war, and there you had all those years of trenches and death and pain. Of course, that was the Hashgacha. So what are you doing, kings? Do you know how many millions and millions of people are going to be killed? No, my dynasty is going to live on forever. Well, their dynasty did not live on forever. But a royal family was born that would live on forever. And if you think about the Mechutanim just of this family, the Steipler, Reb Chaim Kanievsky, Reb Chaim Brim, Reb Shlomo Zalman Auerbach, it's interesting. I think it's an interesting observation that as the world mustered up all of its power and all of its strength and all of its honor to make sure I live, didn't work. And a little baby is born, and the Rebbeinu Shem says this is going to be a monarchy and a dynasty of Torah, and it goes on. And I think that there's a practical lesson for us as well. The great think tanks are analyzing world politics. We're in the mikveh, by the Sheitelmacher on the street, the insurance companies, whoever it is, everyone there, the newspapers, the liberals, the Republicans, and the same experts that had no clue 2 years ago that Hashem is going to pull the plug on Egypt and Libya and Syria and Yemen, right? So now everyone's thinking. Everyone has the cheshbonos. We have seen so many times in the world that things last and last and last, and all of a sudden, boom, it disappeared. Because the Rebbe Hashem pulled the plug on it. We've said the mashal many times. You take that, in my days, when someone came back from Niagara Falls, you got this little round thing in a glass with the water and the snowflakes. So you used to play a game, where are all the snowflakes going to land? Okay? Yeah. So the child, because you never know what's going to happen, right? So where are all the snowflakes going to land? So I remember playing a game with one of my friends, and I was saying, this is going to land there. We made like a bet. The bet was for a chocolate bar or something. So the last minute when he saw he was losing, he picked it up and shook it and said, you see it's landing in all different places. We can predict anything. The Rebbeinu Shalom shakes the ball and everything changes. Kings that were there, monarchies that were there for thousands of years, gone, disappeared. Not only does the monarchy disappear, but the whole concept of a monarchy virtually disappears, and it's relegated to some ceremony someplace. And this little baby lives right through it. So Reb Tzaddik says that most of your serious problems in life, you shouldn't have any, are not the things that you anticipated. And most of the things that you worry about aren't the problems that are going to come to fruition. So he says, so why worry? You don't know what to worry about. You're worrying about the wrong thing. Now he says a svara, why this is so. why most of the things you worry about aren't going to happen. That's because the Kadosh Baruch Hu gives you the worry as a matana, and you say to yourself, okay, Rabbi Shalom, I'm going to daven a better Shemon Esrei, I'll be one makbid on nicer money, I'll be kovei yitim l'Torah, and boom, you zap it. The fact that you have the daiga before and there's a matana, in most cases, Rabbi Shalom is not so interested in scaring you. If he's giving you the daiga, you can do something about it. So Mamela, in a world where everyone is so frightened and scared, why don't we take it easy? Because we don't know what to be scared about. Because the chances are that what we're worried about is not our problem anyway. This little Yosef Shalom, and think about this, what it meant for him to survive. Again, I want to paint this picture of the huge, mighty armies of Europe that were decimated. And this little boy is born in a time where many women died during childbirth, Rahman al-Islam, where the infant mortality rate was through the roof, hunger, disease, pogroms knocked them all out, and here he's going to outlive all the mighty kings, including Big Bertha. And not only does he outlive them, right, he outlives World War II, and he becomes the Paisik of the century. Do you see how statistics don't make a difference? Do you see how the emotions in our life that say we're never going to make it, the oh no, what's going to happen, the kind of feeling that we sometimes have, the doomsday kind, what do you know? The Rabbi Shalom runs the world, and it's a very, very different kind of a world. So when you open up a Gemara and you say, Amar Rava, Amar Abaya, think about this. Rava and Abaya predate all of the strong countries in the world with the most powerful munitions and armies by 1,500 years. And they're still around, we're still learning them. And they're gone. And that's the Pekudei Hashem Yesharim Mesamchei Leiv. You open up a Gemara, you say, you know what, this Gemara was around well before my problems, well after my problems. I'm hitching a ride. Whatever happens, happens. Let it be. Now, being that a state in Svarim HaKadoshim, when a tzaddik is nifter, he usually does not go to his place in Olam Haba until he makes a case for the oilam that's left down here. So Yatzar the Yismach Moshe, there was a famous story, the Yismach Moshe said when he gets up there, he's not going to go into Gan Eden until Mashiach comes. And they came up there and they said, come on, just take a peek, just take a peek. No, I'm not going in until Mashiach comes. And David HaMelech came and did his fiddle, whatever the legends are, and he, a little closer, he looked in and that's it. He forgot about it. But right now, it's important that we understand how Rabbi Yashiv grew up and a little bit where he came from, because he's going to be asking for us at this moment, and we have to connect. Rabbi Yashiv's father, was a Yid, a tzaddik by the name of Rabbi Avram Arener. That was his last name. He was Mechaber the Sefer Bikuri Avram. He was the Homel Rav. You may ask Akash if Rabbi Yashiv's father his last name was Arener, so why is Rabbi Yashiv's name El Yashiv? Why isn't his name Arener? So I want to tell you that Bechlal, last names in Europe was not like didn't take it very seriously. It was like a license plate. You changed it to he and the hair. They said, the guy came, there's a new law, you have to have last names. What are we going to do? They said, Rav said, so pick a name. What name should we pick? Pick whatever you want. He says, we don't have any names. There's big deal. He says, big, small, black, white, whatever you want. There's Gross. Some people call Gross, some people call Klein, some people call Schwartz, some people call Weiss. He said, pick whatever name you want. Some people were named after the name of their town. Some people were named because they didn't speak English and the immigration officials didn't know what they were talking about. And that's how the name Smith, I think, came around, because it was the wrong paper. They said Smith? Yeah, okay, Smith. His name is Smith, I say the story, the guy came, they told me, in order to get into the country, you cannot tell them you're Jewish, you have to pick a Goyish name. He goes, I don't know any Goyish names. And he goes, you got to pick a Gentile name. He says, I don't know any. And he says, Rabbi Shalom, help me. Somebody whispers, just say your name is John Ferguson. Okay, got it. Guy says, what's your name? He goes, oh, you're Rabbi Shalom, Sean Ferguson. He goes, oh, John Ferguson, sure, no problem, right? We got you here. So the Rav Shetzirov, they say when he got married, my father shared me this, he took on his wife's name, Horowitz, because he said it reminds him, you got to work, can't take anything for granted. So Rabbi Yashiv's father would take on later his wife's maiden name, which was El Yashiv, and he did so because of the British mandate and the certificates and whatever it took to be able to get in. Now, his mother's father, Rabbi Yashiv's mother's father, his name was Shlomo El Yashiv. And he made a sefer which is primarily, it's halacha, it discusses tifa, shkafis, it's a Kabbalah, it's called Leshem, he's called the Leshem. Leshem, the names of the stones on the Choshen, it's called the Leshem. It's interesting to note that the Chafetz Chaim had one picture hanging on his wall, and that was a portrait of the Leshem. He felt that the Leshem is the future of Klal Yisrael. He once told Rabbi Elia Dushnitzer, the Mashgiach in Radin, he said, Chaper Rein and go visit the Leshem, because if you don't do it on this world, you probably won't be able to get to him in the world to come. I will tell you that I had a friend of mine, he told me the story firsthand, that he was driving someplace out of the city, and he realized it's coming up to 9 days, and it's an hour before Shkia, so it was coming up to the 3 weeks, and his hair was quite long, and he needed badly to take a haircut, and an hour from now he won't be able to take a haircut for another 3 weeks. So he pulls into a barber that probably never saw a Jew before. He's driving out of town, and he comes in. It's an old Lithuanian man, and he sits down. He says, "No shave, just the thing." And he looks up, and lo and behold, there's a picture on the wall of the Chafetz Chaim, out of all people. Whoa! So he says, "What's this doing here?" So the man says that he remembers when he was a peasant in Lithuania, and he was a little kid. He was a peasant. That when the Chafetz Chaim used to walk home, the peasants used to run and ask if they can carry him over their fields, because they felt there was a bracha to the field. So he figured it's a bracha to the field, and once because he was passing by Eichler's and said, maybe a bracha of my barber shop. So there it was hanging over there. So this was the portrait of the one portrait that the Chafetz Chaim had was that of the Leshem. Rav Vosner said that he heard from a Talmud of the Chafetz Chaim that he said about the Leshem, the Chafetz Chaim said that he's amazing because he built in Shemayim when he was down here in this world. What does that mean? He built in Shemayim when he was down here in this world. That meant that he was very down to earth, and he lived in a time of unbelievable hardships, and he just continued on. Somebody told me, this person is a surgeon. He says his car got stuck someplace, and he pulled into a mechanic on the road. The guy gets under the car, and he says, well, he can fix it for $200, whatever you have to change. He says, here's a clogged fuel line. So as he's doing it, he says, what do you do? He says, I'm a surgeon. He says, He says, I clean the fuel line, I get $50 for it. He says, you clean the fuel lines. He says, you get $200,000. You do open heart surgery. He says, not fair. What's interesting, what you do and I do. So the surgeon said there's a major difference. He says, I have to do it with the engine running. Okay? Not only with the engine running, with the car going full speed. He says, you do it when the car is off. He says, we have to learn and we have to daven with the engine running, with life going on. Now we have to listen to the newspapers and hear about a world that hates us and a world that's out there to kill us, and we have to hear about the threats and an economy that's crashing, and come and put on your tefillin and daven with a smile and say, Moidani. We got to operate with the engine running. But that's where you get paid like the surgeon. You get paid like the surgeon. And that's what he said. He's down here on this world, and he builds in Shemayim. Today I treated myself when I saw the storm outside. I got one of these big, massive umbrellas. I never knew where you get them from. I always get the little ones, which I lose someplace. It's usually a chad pami by me one time. I take it to shul and I never bring it home. And once my wife kind of taunted me, there goes another umbrella, right? One-time use, disposable umbrellas. I said, no, I'm going to bring it home. And the next day, I showed my wife. I brought the umbrella home. She said, yeah, but today you didn't take an umbrella to shul. You brought someone else's umbrella home. So anyway, I'm walking with this umbrella, and I'm like, walking with it on. It's a big umbrella. So so the Rebbes, they have like sticks, walking sticks, But a lot of people, that doesn't pass. You don't walk with a stick, But when you have an umbrella, a big umbrella, you can, let your imagination go a little bit. Everyone needs to work on their self-esteem a little bit. So I'm walking with this big umbrella, and to my mazel, it opens up, boom. It gets like caught in my pants. I can't get it. I can't, if I close it, it's pulling on my pants. So I open it, I'm standing there, and a guy walks by, and he says, I thought you only have problems with your cars, he says. I knew, right? Something had to be with a car this week. So I said, you know what my problem was? That my head was in the wrong place. Instead of living down here on this earth and thinking, what I have to do right for the Rebbeinu Shalom, I try to bring the Shemayim down here. I'm a big Rebbe. When you do that, you get it. You get it, where you are. The Ben Ish Chai, when he got the Svarim of the Leshem, he made a Shechianu on it. So why was the Chafetz Chaim so excited about the Leshem? Maybe the Chafetz Chaim saw Rebbe Yashiv. Maybe he saw the Stipler. Maybe he saw Li Bodl Mechaim L'chaim, Reb Chaim Kanievsky. Maybe he saw that this is Torah, the next generation. It's a world that's up. It's a world that's down. Right? And we live in a world where the media tries to excite us to follow things up and down. You know, Obama had a Romney, Romney had a Obama, he said this and he said that, and you're a liar, and you're a liar, and you're this and you're that, and we followed a ping-pong match back and forth. What do you thought? Wait till the end of the game and see who won. Wake me up on Wednesday in November, tell me you won. Why do I got to go up and down, up and down? What do they say? You know, Reuven borrows money, and the guy comes and needs the money back, so he runs to Shimon, borrows money from Shimon to pay back the thing, then he borrows money from Levi to pay back Shimon, back and forth. Each time he runs back and forth, finally he says, listen, all you guys, you keep paying each other, leave me out of it. Now that's very irresponsible when it comes to a loan. But in a way, the Rebbeinu Shalom says, what are you getting? Stocks up, stocks down, my this, my that. Yeah, let the world run. Okay, the world's going to go where it's supposed to. You do what you have to do. And I told you this story many times. I read it in one of Rabbi Twersky's books. There was a Shalom Bayis situation where, believe it or not, a family was going to fall apart because she was what's called a football widow. He went in the sugar, he was a Jet fan, and he was so crazy about the Jets that it came before his kids, it came before his wife, it came before anything. And his wife said, listen, it's either the Jets or me. And you don't want to know what he answered. So he went to help. So he told him, listen, he said, and not only that, he said it affected him. Mamish affected him. It's hard to understand this, but affected him emotionally. When they lost, he was mensch, he was bitter, he was this, there was no Shabbos, there was no Yom Tov, and when they won, he went Meshuggah crazy. So he told him, why don't you cannot watch any more Jet games. You can't do that to me, I have to. He says, I'll tell you what you do. Tape the game and watch it, but don't watch it live. So he said, make sure you don't listen to any sports station. Okay, just read the Hamadiyah, listen to Kol Mavasa, you don't get the Jet scores over there, and you'll watch the game. But don't say, what do I get? I'm going to watch the whole game anyway. Do me a favor, trust me. So he went back, and this he did. He after the game was over, not hearing the score, he turned on to watch the game. And his excitement, his anxiety, his anxiousness, it went down. He watched it, no, went out Dav Ma'ariv in the middle, came back. So he said, what's the problem? How come you're not so excited? He says, because Lamaisa, it's already after the game. So what's it? You don't know what happened. Yeah, but Lamaisa, whatever happened already. So whatever, go, whatever. It happened already, when we're getting so excited. Whatever happened. It's not going to change. So he told him, if you really believed that there are 42 stations in life, Eila Masa B'nai Yisrael, and the Rebbeinu Shalom knows exactly what's going to happen in your life, it's all decided, you don't get so nervous about things. Even the things you don't know about, even the unknown. It's already done. Whatever the Rebbeinu Shalom wants is going to happen. You're not so emotionally up and down. You're not on a roller coaster. Life is more tranquil. Life goes on. Goes on. I think that's what the Chavetz Chaim meant. That he's down here in this world, but he's like sick in Shemayim. Whatever happens to this world, let the Rebbeinu Shalom run it. The Rebbeinu Shalom will have to happen. The sons are up. My father used to share with me the story. The sons are up was on a wagon, and everyone was talking about the heat of the wars. World War I is going to break out. The Russians, the Polish, whatever. Went back and forth. And the wagon driver turned around and he said, quiet! He said, I know how to drive this wagon, and God knows how to guide the world. How can a China? So the sons of Rav said he's the only one that's making sense of it. There is an ability they had in those times to remove themselves from the world. Whatever happens, gegangen weiter. You see it also from the Tanoim and Amiroim after the time of the Churban. Whereas beforehand they were very involved with the kings and so on, they tried to straighten things out. After the Churban there was a different mahalach. Do whatever you want. You borrow from him, you borrow from him. Just let me do what I have to do. And the Rebbeinu Shalom will send things in the right directions. Now the wife of the Leshem, her name was Bas Sheva, whom Rebbetzin Kanievsky, Leo Shalom, was named after, her namesake. She ran a grocery for 50 years that the Leshem should be able to learn. And even when the grocery was near bankruptcy, she came home with bags of potato chips. It's all hunky-dory because she didn't want her husband. Now he had a daughter. They had a daughter. The Leshem had a daughter. Her name was Chaya Mushya. And that was Rebbe Yasha's mother. And she married Rebbe Avram, as I told you before, was Rebbe Yasha's father. They were childless for 17 years. And she never cried in front of her husband, because she didn't want to bring the matziv ruach in the house down. You see how courageous these people were. So one day she was really depressed. Someone made an insensitive comment to her. It's been 17 years now, didn't have a child. And she goes down to the cellar of her house to cry. She doesn't even want to see her cry. And her father was passing by, and he came in to visit the daughter. But no one's home. And he thinks he hears a woman crying in the cellar. And he goes downstairs, and he sees his daughter, Chaya Mushya, standing there crying her heart out with the Tillim that she wants a child. He doesn't say anything. He picks up a Tillim and starts davening with her. And as she finishes the whole Tillim, she turns around and notices her father there. And he said to her, he told her at that time, he said, I promise you, you're going to have a child that is going to light up the world with Torah u'b'tzidkus. Now, imagine, again, look at this for a moment. What happened in Lithuania? Not too many people survived. So for 17 years, she looks around, there's large families, and she's doomed, right, to nothing. To think that she would have one child that's going to survive and build a dynasty that is the glory of Klal Yisrael, and unfortunately, never, tragedy of tragedies, nobody in the town survived. So why are we jealous of other people? Why do we think that, it'll never work? We don't know. This world changes so quickly. Hashem picks up that thing and shakes it. You have to learn to relax. Learn to take it easy. So Lamaisa, he gave her the bracha that she should have a child. 2 years passed by, she didn't have a child. And then there's the famous story that one day she was going home, and in those days, you know what it took to wash laundry? You had to schlep it to the water, and you dunked it in the water, and they cooked it, and they boiled it, and you had to it was a whole day's work. And she takes it, and she hangs it up on the line, and a neighbor came down, and it turned out this neighbor thought that she hung it up in her parking spot over there, and she grabbed the clothes, threw it into the mud, did a kazatzka on it, boom, 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 made a good kugel. It was dripping with mud and dirt and slime, and said, ha ha! And she came down and she, And she said, I never had a fight with anybody. I didn't even know how to fight. And she decided she's not telling her husband about it. She's not telling her husband about it because she doesn't want to make a machlokes. That's all we need now is a machlokes. I'll redo the laundry tomorrow. What can I do? And she took it upstairs. And a while later, the woman is pounding at the door and she's crying. She says her son is sick and she thinks it's because of this. Please be meichel me. She said, of course, I'm meichel you. And her husband could not believe she didn't even say anything about this. And she ran and she said Tillim with the mother the whole night by the bedside of the child. The child should get better. And right afterwards, Rabbi Yosef was born. Okay, so we have over here a tremendous yesod. And the Baal Shem Tov talks about this, the Rishna talks about this. There could be bracha that has already been assigned for you. The Malachim wrote off on it. The bracha is there, it has your social security number on it, it's on the heavenly FedEx truck, and it's about to be delivered. But there are mekatrikim that come and say, he doesn't deserve it, it's not fair, why is he getting it, but it's here. And what happens is, the Rebbe says, let's see what happens. We will give the person an asayin, and let's see if he passes the asayin. And if you pass an asayin ben adam l'chaveirai, presto, clearance, it's yours. Often when a person is about to get a promotion in life, says the Baal Shem Tov. So all of a sudden there's like a last minute, the congressional committee, I don't know, I'm not sure, maybe he once paid an anti tax or something, we got him on a chet over there. So when a Shemayim, what they do is they don't passel him. They say, let him have an asayim ben adam l'chaveirai, or between him and his wife, and so let's see what happens. Let's see where he goes. So very often, if you're challenged by someone close to you who said something perhaps out of character or in character, and something happens, and you're about to yell back, stop right there. Who knows? Who knows what's waiting on the other side of the door? And all that the Rebbe Shem wants is, you have to grab the moment. Rav Elia Lapiyam also writes this very often. If you're embarrassed, grab the moment and daven, because your koiches are tremendous. Rebbetzin Kanievsky, Alel Shalom, used to say this all the time. She used to tell people, find someone who was embarrassed and didn't answer back, okay, and ask them for a bracha. Ask them for a bracha. That doesn't mean you should go around embarrassing people until you find someone who doesn't answer you back. You got to find someone that's embarrassed. I heard this story from different people that there was a girl in Eretz Yisrael. She was in a terrible fire, house fire. She came out alive, but her skin was burnt terribly, and she looked horrible. And after they stabilized her in Eretz Yisrael, they brought her here to America for a skin grafting. And it would be a series of skin grafts that would take a while. Meanwhile, they have to put her into a school. So they would put her into the girls' school. They said the girls are going to see her, what's going to be. So one of the teachers had a very good idea. She took a picture of the girl, gave it out to all the students, This way they were all able to go, okay, you see, you finished. Now that you're used to it, you know what she looks like, she's coming, and please don't say it when she's here. And everybody tried to be extra sensitive, and the girl came, and everything seemed okay. And one day this girl comes home, and she's crying her head off. Apparently she got into a fight with someone over who's valedictorian or GO or something, and she threw herself onto the bed, and that girl called her an ugly witch, and she threw her blankets over her head, and she's crying her head off. She's never ever going back to school. She's never leaving the house. And her mother said, I'm going to call the principal. I'm going to have that girl suspended. She promised me it's never going to happen. And the grandmother walked in. She saw what was going on. The grandmother sat down next to this girl and said, Rivkala, you're going to have that girl suspended. You're going to feel better for 2 seconds. I have a better idea. Between you and me, let's be realistic. When it comes to a shidduch, it's going to be a challenge. Because you're going to have to find a boy that's willing to look deeper than your skin to see your beauty. Yitzutz bracha now. Let's daven together for a shidduch. And she stood up, the tears dripping, and she and her grandmother said Tehillim. And then she told the mother, forget the suspending of that girl. Don't worry about it. And the next day the girl apologized. A year or two down the pike, she found a boy that indeed saw her internal beauty. And he was masking to the shidduch, and he was a boy at Schachter Babach. And after the chuppah, she broke away from him. She saw her grandmother and ran over and hugged her grandmother and said, Grandmother, there's no doubt in my mind that it was that moment that brought this about. The Leshem, came to Eretz Yisrael, and again, it was not easy to travel to Eretz Yisrael in those days. There was a whole story. It was Ksafim. This whole sefer was lost in Turkey, and it was found al Pines. I'll skip parts. It's getting late. In 1922, Tar Pei Dalet. The Leshem came together. His wife had passed away already. He came with his son-in-law Avram, with his daughter Chayamosha, and the young Einakol that was born as a result of her understanding when the promotion was there. As he finished his svarim, his eyesight failed him, and Rabbi Yoshev was a very young child, did most of the writing for his grandfather. The Leshem was Nifter Chav Zayin Adar, 1926. His son-in-law Rabbi Avram started an organization in Yerushalayim called Teferes Bacharim. They had a base medrash. It's still there, I think. And it was a night program. It was a program for boys to come in and learn at night. And this is 1926. You can well imagine. And he gave shiurim, and his kavanah was for the boys that are working, for the boys that are drifting away, and it was unbelievably matzliach. This Rebbe Avram was nifter. Suddenly he was 61 years old. Dalit Cheshvan Tavshin Gimel, 1942. Rabbi Yosef Shalom Elyashiv took over his father's shir. Then he was 32 years old, and they say that he gave that shir for the next 70 years and never missed a shir. Every single night. 70. 70 years. They say some of the crowd changed in the course of 70 years. I don't think they were all the same. But imagine giving a shir for 70 years, never missed that nightly shir. Rabbi Yoshev never attended a formal yeshiva. He never attended a formal yeshiva. If he would have want to get into a masifta somewhere, I'm sorry, we can't tell where are you coming from. He learned with his father several hours a day. He got married 5 days before he was 20, because you want to get married before you're 20, if you can. And with his father, by that time, he had finished Shas, Rambam, Shulchan Aruch, and I don't think that they had Arskol Gemaras to help them, or tapes. I think they basically did it, they even have the blue Gemaras, they did it. Now, his father was a Rav, and people used to ask him shilas. It's very interesting. So it says that, I read that during the 3 hours that they learned, his father would answer all the shilas, treif, kosher, puzzle. And after the 3 hours, he sat down with his son and said, let's go back now to the shilas they asked me. Why is it treif? Why is it kosher? Why is it puzzle? Right? And that's some way to learn how to paskel shilas. That's the Gedola Shimusha Yoiser Melemuda. So first of all, look what he saw. His father's learning with his son, and there's no such a thing as doors are locked. You didn't have to know. You got to know. And they say, Rav Moshe, for 20 years, this old lady would knock on his door every Friday, a neighbor. Shashayla for the Rav, a Shayla for the Rav. Yeah. When is Lachzinden? When is? And Moshe would look it up and tell her what Lachzinden was. And once he was in the middle of an Aguna Shayla, unbelievable, difficult Shayla, the lady back, we'll tell her when Lachzinden is. Got up, he went to tell her, so she waits for this the whole week. She waits the whole week. Go understand, Rav Moshe, right? Go understand these tzaddikim of these times. I heard a story from a Yid, I remember if I said this last week or not, but he had a bakery in the east side. and his name was Perlmutter. And he said he started the bakery. He didn't really know wasn't into pictures. And he saw this little short man would come in, and he was like a Satmar Chassid. He would tell him, "There's the Rabbi Sheet," and he would like argue with him, and on. He would smile, and notice every once in a while somebody would go ahead of him, and somebody would he would let people go ahead. He gave him he gave him a hard time. And once he came to a dinner, and he sees his customer walks in. He says, "Come say hey, sit down next to me. We can have some fun together." They started calling him up to the head table. He says, "Why are you calling him up to the head table? He's my customer." So he's also the Rosh Hashiva. He goes, "You? Oh, you they?" So the next day he felt bad. So he went and he delivered the Shabbos order to his house. He said, "Listen, it was a good nature. They weren't he wasn't checking him Chas Shalom in a bad way, but they were like, So he brought him he said, Rosh Hashiva, and asked him, He said, every Friday, I know what you buy. Here, you don't have to come to the store. Here's your order. Brought it for him. So Moshe said, "You didn't shepherd me. It was not a problem. He enjoyed it." And he says, no, he says this, he wants to go and walk and buy it L'Kavod Shabbos. He doesn't want you to bring it to his, doors. You want to know what this means, that these tzaddikim were on this world and they were in Shemayim. It's very, very different. Very, very different. So, but Rabbi Yashiv did have smicha. He had smicha from Rav Zelig, an official smicha. From Rav Zelig, Reuven Bengis. He had from Mrs. Zalman Meltzer. But it was his father. That's what it was meant to be. The father's supposed to live with a child. But they got married Friday night. You know what they got married Friday night for? You ever buy Friday night chassan? Anyone here? They got married Friday night because they could not afford chicken more than once a week. So they got married Friday night. Today, right? Go tell somebody that. The guy says, comes over to him by a chassan. He says, "Here you're the Baal Simcha." He goes, "My wife is the Baal Simcha. I'm the Baal Chayif." He says. He lived afterwards in a 2-bedroom apartment with his mother. It was not a very big apartment, as they were having children for 25 years. I think at one point they moved out, but that was the house that Rabbi Yosef lived in. It's not a very, very big house. Go figure out that these Yerushalayim kids are happier than this kid that gets everything. This kid that the battery for his PlayStation is worth more than their whole apartment. So why is he happy? Right? This guy from Texas comes to this Yerushalayim guy. He says, "Well, how many kids do you have?" He's standing on the street. He sees the Yerushalayim guy walking. He says to a boy, "Ma'am, who are you? You're also mine. Get into the apartment." He said, I remember I was in Yerushalayim and I was a bacher. We went. I think I told you this many times. We felt so bad. There was a late. They were late. It was so poor. You can't imagine. It was way back then. They slept the shifts. The girls and the boys slept. This thing came out of the wall like a bed, like a platform. They put a bed on it, and the girls slept one half of the night. The boys the other half of the night. And the mother carved the chicken Friday night with slivers, like slivers of chicken. She carved the chicken. So before we left, you felt so bad. We insisted we should come, and the kids were so happy to have archem and the zmirs. It was like a simcha that you can't explain. So we bought a case of plastic dishes for them, just as a matana. So we came back the next, after Yom Tov. They said, what happened to the plastic dishes? She said it was too hard to wash. She went back to the regular one. What did it say? This text says, "I understand. How come your kids are so happy? And my kids, they need therapy. They need this. They need that. Why? He says, look what you have. You have this tiny." He says, you know what I have? He says, I get into my pickup truck in the morning and I start driving on my ranch when the sun comes up, and when the sun comes down, I didn't reach the other side of the ranch. So Yishami says, I have a car like that too. He says, it's not a, you know what I mean? When Rabbi Yoshev got married, so by the Sheva Brachas, that big fancy Sheva Brachas, so instead of just a piece of black bread in the morning, they had a piece of black bread and a tomato. And then they figured out where did he married by the Rabbi Outliving, was his father-in-law, the great tzaddik of Yerushalayim. They were trying to figure out where did the tomato come from. He can't afford a tomato. They realized that one of the kids got a smaller piece of bread, so they should be able to have this tomato as a baton for the Sheva Brachas. So when no one was looking, they quickly ran to barter the tomato back for the bread to give it back to the kids. That was their Sheva Brachas in their two-apartment. So she said to her husband, go to Kyle learn during Sheva Brachas. Do me a favor. Go to Kyle learn. So he went. When she was sick, many, many years later, and it didn't look good, so she told him, go to learn. He didn't want to go. So she said, I told you about my first Sheva Brachas you should go to learn. I'm telling you about my second Sheva Brachas you should go to learn also. See how they viewed life and death? See how they viewed this whole world? In poverty, it was tough. Not that it wasn't tough. But it didn't faze them. Their life was different. Life went on. It was like that famous marshal from the Chafetz Chaim. You know, the guy, he can buy this unbelievable diamond. He had to give every penny that he had, so he couldn't afford first class. You know, he had to buy coach and back a coach. He had to sit on the tail wing. You know, it was, oh, Nebuch, look at him, Nebuch. You don't know why I did this. Because I bought this diamond when I get home. But, yeah, unbelievable. Rabbi Yashu's bedtime for close to 70, 80 years was between 10:30 and 11 o'clock. When did he wake up? At 3 a.m. Okay? Not to turn over for Series B on the other side. He woke up at 3 a.m. And the guy that walks into the basement at 9 o'clock, he says, wait. What's Yetzirah gets his way? He's talking about, I set my alarm clock for 6 o'clock. He says, for 3 hours I fought with my Yetzirah and I won. Do you imagine? 3-hour battle with my Yetzirah. At 9 o'clock I got out of bed. Mr. my Krishna problem. 3 a.m. 3 a.m. On Purim, she used to wake up every night at 2:30 to prepare coffee for him. You slime the coffee on a kerosene stove with a thing. You have to make the coffee, and you have to go out and collect the nuts, the beans from Colombia. It wasn't just you poured it in. So they got together, and they bought her an unbelievable thing, a thermos bottle. And she said, "You can make it before you go to sleep." What? You would think I would use this? So I saw different versions, but let me tell you the version that I heard from Rabbi Williger, the Rosh Kollel and Tarvadas. He heard it from Rebbetzin Elyashiv. He heard it from her. Rebbetzin Shayna Chaya. She said they bought her a thermos bottle. She says there are 3 reasons I didn't use it. So he asked her, what are the 3 reasons? He says, number 1, she wants the schutz of waking up to prepare the coffee for her husband. Thermos bottle at 8 o'clock at night. She wants to wake up at 2 o'clock in the morning. Number 2, she said, she doesn't want these modern things in her house. Okay? It's not like they bought her a touch iPad over here. Like, you know what I mean? She doesn't want modern zach in her house. Number 3, she said, if I wake up to make him the coffee, I know he's going to have to wake up. Because what's going to look like his wife woke up at 2:30 to make a coffee, he doesn't wake up at 3. This guarantees he's going to wake up. They had a different mindset than we do. Not that Rabbi Yasha needed the coffee to wake up. Because he woke up from 20 to 102 for 82 years straight. He woke up. If he really, really wasn't feeling well, he went to sleep during the day a little bit. But waking up was a non-option. Non-option. So you would think, well, of course, they're in Yerushalayim. You know, they have their bread and tomatoes, and life is so good and so peaceful. You wake up at 3 o'clock to learn. They didn't have the ups and downs that we face, really. They had a son, Yitzchak, who died. He was 3 months old. And they had a little girl named Rivka. Right? She would be the sister of Rabbi Kanievsky. And during the 1948, they were very close to where the Jordanians were shooting. So they moved over to a different house. And when they announced the ceasefire, they came out of the bomb shelter to try to go home and get some things. But the Jordanians didn't honor the ceasefire. And this little girl was hit by shrapnel, and she was burned terribly. And for 2 weeks, she was literally struggling with life, and her neshama moved on to a better world. You want to know the kinds of life that they live? You know, it's one thing to wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning and things are going your way and you're excited. But no such a thing. I do what I have to do. It's interesting that one of their daughters was named Sarah Rachel. Who was she named after? Rebbetzin Elyashiv once passed by a neighbor. There was an old almana. She was crying. What are you crying? I have no children. No one's going to remember I even existed in my life. She was so upset. She came back and told her husband. Her husband said, we'll name our next daughter after her. She's not going to believe we're going to do it. No, we'll name, when she's alive, we'll name it after her. Name Ashkenazim don't do it. You don't name after a live person. You don't name after a person that doesn't have children, maybe, you know, bad mazel. The next daughter they had was named Sarah Rachel. They said, you see, we named this girl Sarah Rachel. We named her for you. And she would bring chocolate to her. She would try to be nice to her. She couldn't believe it. And once when she grew older, she said to her father, like, do you regret doing this? It was like a passion of the moment. You named me after the next door neighbor who was alive. And he told her, you don't know what a bracha that is. That we made a living widow feel good. Out of all his daughters, I think she has the biggest family. The biggest, I don't remember which is which. They thought very differently. You know, they say the story that there was this man, and we mentioned it many times, he was, his wife is, all good babies are born 2 minutes before Shabbos. So they run off, he lives in Beit Har, run off to Yerushalayim. getting close to his mind. He wants to get back to his kids, and the baby, new baby, no. But, there's a time that the malach gives life to the baby. So finally she says, go home, we'll let you know what's that. No, I can't go home. And she hears, the girl, thank you, Mazdov. He races home, he comes home, he tells me he's so excited, a girl. That they had made up beforehand that if they have a girl, they're going to name her Rivka after one of the grandmothers. It was Pashas told us, so they're going to name her Rivka because it was Pashas told us. They had a grandfather to name after, but all the grandmothers were used up already, their names. So, made a kiddush, they named her Rivka. Matzah Shabbos, the mother calls on the speakerphone and says, Mazel Tov, and she goes to Howard the Bundler for the Shalom Zacher. And he says, hey, good joke. Not joke. Like, how was the Shalom Zacher? What do you mean the Shalom Zacher? Well, let me tell you what happens if you don't learn Digduk. There is a chilik between Yalda and Yolda. Right? Yeah, one of them means, I'm going to say which is which. But one of them means a girl. One of them means, she gave birth. He mixed it up. So now they had a girl named Rivka. Which was a boy named Rivka. Right? Imagine, you go and make his talus thing there. Okay, his name is Rivka, the Gaba. Rivka, Bas, So he said, what do I do now? I named my boy Rivka. So they asked Rabbi Yasha. So Rabbi Yasha said, so name him Yitzchak. Because Ishta Kegufa, so name him Yitzchak. So he said, no, but he has his grandfather, Chaim Beryl Shmerel, he wants to name after. No. He said, name Yitzchak. So he was like, what kind of psak is that? So you don't understand the psak. He's light years ahead of you in his emunah. He understands that this baby had to be named Yitzchak, but you would have never named the baby Yitzchak, because you would have named him Chaim Beryl Shmerel, your grandfather. So God Baruch Hu made you think it's a girl, and Rivka, and the Rivka became Yitzchak. Not that it was a goof. See, Rabbi Yashiv understands that if there's a widow crying, then this has to be the baby's name. It's not I'm going to go out on a limb and maybe I should or I shouldn't or it doesn't really pop. This is what the Baruch wants from me. Different kind of life. Different kind of world. Aisha was alive. You don't name after someone that's alive. Someone told me, that between this world and Yenevelt was, for them, there wasn't that much of a difference. Shabbos afternoon, he would walk in the alleyways of Yerushalayim talking with his daughters. The big tzaddik hadar. Being mechanech them. Once a month they walked to the Kaisel until 1947 when it became too dangerous. I want to tell you that I had one opportunity to visit, and that was together with Shmuel or Pinchas or Brifol, which I'll be forever grateful for that we were zeicha to do that. It was a couple of years ago. We went in and we asked Rabbi Yashiv a question. And the question was, Benogeya, if you invite a Shabbos guest to your house, and what if the guest isn't dressed the way your kids are dressed, and maybe it's going to have a negative influence on them? And I was sure Rabbi Yashiv would say that he gave an amazing psak. He said, of course you have to invite people. He said, if they're there day in, Shabbos out, and they're developing a relationship with your kid, and you feel it's not the right type of chinuch, that's something else. But one time, the kid shouldn't see it, what's the problem? He had such a look at life. He had it all there. Had it all there in one, it says that after the Steipler was nifter, after the Chavetz Chaim was nifter, so I forgot who said it, one of the big Rosh Hashivas, that it says when a tzaddik goes up to Shemayim, they make him part of the Bezdin. So we better be careful with Lashon Hara, because we know the Chavetz Chaim is on the Bezdin. So he said when the Steipler was nifter, we better be careful with Hasmada. So I was thinking, what do we have to be careful now with? We have to be careful with? We have to be careful with this concept. We are so vulnerable. We're so into the politics, the news. We're so affected. We're so hurt. To be able to say, world, run, don't leave me out of it. To be koveya, eat them. So we're not on the Madrega to wake up at 3 o'clock. We'll wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning, there goes the day. We'll wake up 5 minutes earlier. Be koveya, a 10-minute shir at night, a 15-minute shir at night. Understand that when the widow is crying, I'm not saying you should name your kid, that the Rabbanan Shalom put this into my hands. I think that if we commit ourselves, he was committed to the Shir 70 years, 80 years. Take a Seder tonight. And learn 2 Mishnahs before you go to sleep. Learn a page in Kitzur Shulchan Aruch. Learn a Mishnah Brura. And say, I'm going to do this. I'm not Rabbi Yashiv. I'm not going to do it for 8 hours a night. I'm going to commit myself to do it. Then you get on the good side of the judge. Now is the time to do it. I want to conclude with this story. You're not allowed to learn Torah, right, on Tisha B'Av. Now let's swim, now learn Torah. That means if you learn Torah right, it's just as geschmack as a hot day going swimming. You just have to be able to connect to it. I was in a shul that was taking a long time for the minyan to start. It was like one of those, I don't want to say what time I woke up, but it was a later minyan. It was not 3 a.m. So everyone's saying, you daven, Baal Tefillah, there's no Baal Tefillah. So the Gabba says, I have a klal, go over and start davening, you'll see the minyan will come in. Because I'll start davening, there's no minyan. He says, my rule is as follows, this is what he said. You say Baruch Sha'amar, you'll see V'hoya Ha'olam. The people will come in. And he starts also, he goes, Baruch Sha'amar, I'm the Baruch Sha'amar. Everyone starts davening. You know, sometimes in life, I don't know what's going to be. I don't know what's going to be in my personal life. I don't know what's going to be in the world. You say Baruch Sha'amar, I'm going to learn, I'm going to daven, V'hoya Ha'olam, Rabbi Hashem will take care of the world. Rabbi Hashem will do it for you. Somebody told me a story that there was a psychiatrist by a party. He was supposed to be on call that night. He had a few many drinks, too many. Also, his beeper goes off. This guy wants to see him. You know, he's desperate. And he goes, "What do I do?" He says, "If I go there," and he asked one of his colleagues, "Can you cover for me? If you finish, you're not allowed to drink." So one of his colleagues says, "Go there, okay? But you prescribe medication, and they find out you're drunk. You're finished. You lose your license. Don't say anything. Or give him the rope. Just listen to the guy." So he went there, and the guy's talking his heart out. He's like, finally finishes, he gets up to leave, he runs over to him, he says, "Doc, thanks. This was the best session we ever had," he said. You know? You open up a Gemara and have a session with a Rabbi and Rav. Close the world! You'll see it'll be the best session you ever had. So a woman comes to Rabbi Yashiv, Zecher Tzadik L'Bracha, with her husband. Her husband was diagnosed with a machla. And the doctors in America say, "Don't bother coming, I don't think it's going to help." Rabbi Yashiv looks over, hears all the pratim and the pratim and says, "Okay, there's no point in going. Then don't go." Inside. No point. He said, "Don't go." So the woman stands up, she says to Rabbi Yashiv, "This is the Rabbanish, what you're telling me is that I'm going to be an almana, my children are going to be your son. If this is a Kadosh Baruch Hu's gzeira, I accept it. But one day my children are going to ask me, 'Mommy, did you do everything you can for Tati?' She said, 'Rebbe, am I going to be able to say that I did?' Rabbi Yashiv thought for a moment, and they said, 'Go to America.' It was Friday. He told the Askanim, 'Get working on it.' They said, 'Okay, Matzah Shabbos.' We'll start. No, now. It's the Konos Nefashos. Every day counts. Travel on Shabbos. So somebody came to Reb Chaim Kanievsky and said, 'What happened?' First he said not to go. Now he says travel on Shabbos. He says, once that woman said these words, 'Whatever the Rebbe Hashem wants, I accept. But I have to do what I can.' Once she lifted herself to that level, Rabbi Yashiv felt that with that darga of emunah, the doctors are going to cure it. Before she said it, it wasn't warranted. Make a long story short, he was cured and he's sitting and learning at a kollel in Yerushalayim. So I think that the Eibusher should not test us, chas v'shalom, we should not have such nesyainus. But at the point that we say, Rabbeinu Shalom, whether I accomplish or not is not up to me. But I want to know I did my best. When you do that, you're zeicher to a whole different world of bracha. Thank you very much.